Hello, Rick. We're glad you're here, not Cody.
Okay, you should be.
Much better. So I'll let them explain it, but it's pretty much going to be more interactive and self-driven by you guys of what you want to learn, and they'll go through some of the basics, but if there are specific things that you want to talk about, they're more than willing to discuss those things with you. With that, we'll
Yeah, thank you all for coming. And
Bear with us on this whole microphone situation.
yeah, if you have any questions at all about anything this entire time, don't hesitate to ask, honestly, about anything. We'd much rather answer whatever questions you might have than just talk at you about what we think you might want to know. So we're going to start, essentially.
Maybe we should start with telling them who we are.
Oh.
That would be a good place
That
to
would be
start.
good.
This is our
Novel.
first training that we've done together, so.
Novel. I'm Rick Straw. I work at State Purchasing. I'm a contract analyst. I've been there about 6 months now. And go right ahead.
I'm Wendy Pyrith. I am currently one of the interim assistant directors for State Purchasing, and I am more seasoned. I've been there for like 2.5 years. Our staff's been changing a little bit over the last couple of years, just with the way that our hiring practices have shifted and just people getting to the point where they're interested in retiring or moving forward. But we've kind of updated staff and hiring so that we've got a very dynamic group of people who can definitely help to support as much as you may need. But to kind of refer back to what Rick was saying, this is
Okay.
we appreciate Tom's invitation to come up here, and you guys making the time to come and, have a chat with us. But definitely, feel free to use this time to get your questions answered. We can explain as much as possible, but if it's not addressing what your concerns or your needs are, then that's not really going to help you, and we want to make sure that this time is valuable for you. Okay? On that note,
Yes, all that being said, this thing is definitely on now.
I'll drive.
Oh, okay.
You can talk.
Okay. Is everyone familiar with at least the look of this website? I would hope so. There is a ton of information on it, and it's going to be changing in its functionality in the coming months. But for now, some of the biggest things we want to cover, just so everyone knows, is A, where are the contracts that you all are probably searching for and wanting to purchase things off of? So they are under state contracts. And you want to just go to the best value. So right now, this search feature is not as great as anyone wants it to be. I'm sure.
That's putting it politely, right?
Yeah. So right now, essentially, unless you know the exact contract number, this is going to be very problematic searching in here. So the best thing to do if you're searching for a contract is to just scroll down and grab the spreadsheet. That spreadsheet is updated every week with all of our new contracts. There's 800 or 900, I think, now, something of that nature. And it's going to be far easier to search for what you might be looking for with this spreadsheet than it is trying to use the search function, because it's an abomination. So once you have downloaded the spreadsheet, you kind of have to hunt and peck a little bit through what you might want to find. We have it organized in a variety of ways. You can go by category, or if you know the vendor, you can simply Control F, search for their name, and it will give you, hopefully, in the range of what you want. In the next coming months, this spreadsheet won't be a thing anymore. So for the next couple months, please use it. But coming in March,
So really, in a month. Yeah. The end of next month.
okay, the end of next month, the search function will work. So you shouldn't have the problems you're currently experiencing with the website. Is there anything else you would like to add? about
Yes.
these contracts.
With regards to this spreadsheet, I'll just stand next to it so the microphone picks me up. With regards to this spreadsheet, a couple of things that you'll notice are really beneficial for you is that there is a name and an email address and a phone number of somebody that you can reach out to contact with questions about a contract, with, you know, if you just want to actually get the a copy of the contract or a copy of the summary sheet to kind of know how to use the contract. This is a really fast and easy way to go. Again, it's updated every week because we are doing contracts that quickly. We're doing resolicitations on things that are expiring. We're bringing up new contracts that are going into effect. So for the next, I would say 4 to 5 weeks, this might be much easier for you to use than the website right now, than the actual contract search that's on the website, just because this is a little bit easier to manage through. For most users, Excel's a little bit friendlier. You can just, you can download it when you want to use it, and then just get rid of it when you've got the contact information that you need. Then you can work with that contract manager to, if there's more than one contract in that portfolio, they can help you identify what other contracts might be available for what you're looking for. So there's a few different bits of valuable information that you can just glean right off the bat at a glance through this spreadsheet. But again, the new contract search is coming. It's going to be in effect it's supposed to go live March 19th, and it's going to be hopefully much more helpful and much more functional for anybody that chooses to use it. It is going to have a couple of different features to it, which include what already exists, like the keyword searching or the contract number searching, but it's also going to allow you to search by delivery location, because while some people in Salt Lake County might believe that Salt Lake County is the center of the universe, it actually is not, right? For some of us, Box Elder County is. And so you'll actually be able to search contracts that will deliver to Box Elder County and only see the contracts that actually will service your area. So that will help eliminate a lot of the, should I even be talking to these vendors? Are they providing things in my area? That sort of a thing. So hopefully that'll kind of limit down what you have to go through as well.
Yeah, a lot of the contracts are issued by region. So one vendor may be supplying stuff here, whereas they won't supply things down in Salt Lake and vice versa. So a lot of the contracts are formatted that way, where different vendors are awarded different contracts by region. So yeah, with the spreadsheet, if you have any trouble at all for the next month, just call the person that is associated with it, and they will walk you through everything that you need to know and hopefully solve whatever headache you might have.
Separate note, Cody Garcia is the one that just left. So this will be updated by next Monday with the new contact person if you need to reach out regarding a contract that he manages. But yeah, we do recognize that this is not a great workaround, but it will kind of meet the needs for the next few weeks. Hopefully with the new contract search, everybody will be in much better hands and be able to find what they're looking for. Side note plug for our quarterly PEP session. If you were not aware, every quarter state purchasing puts out for free an all-day conference with regards to public procurement. All public procurement professionals are invited. Our next one is March 22nd, runs from 9 to 4 down in Salt Lake at the state office building. It does come with a free lunch in case that helps to entice anybody. But we'll cover everything from, changes and items that are relevant to the Utah Procurement Code. We provide trainings on specific topics depending on who's requesting, or, if there's a request for, hey, we really want some more information on how you guys do small purchases, or, small, or quotes for small purchases, or how do you guys run your IFB process, or things like that. And sometimes we'll bring in some different speakers from different facets of public procurement, just to kind of help provide some more clarity into this sometimes murky world of public procurement that we live in. So again, March 22nd, if I am remembering correctly. And we'll actually show you where you can find some more information on that as well.
Let's go to another area. Let's go to the forums. How about?
How about we talk about this right here?
Oh,
real quick?
let's do that. Again, if you, that's just another way to reach out to us if you have a question. So you can fill out this form, and it will come to our office and be distributed to the person who is probably handling the contract that you're having questions about. We try to handle it within 24 hours, essentially. So it's just another way. And maybe you don't know exactly what you're looking for. You don't want to take the time to rummage through the spreadsheets and find out what it is that you might need. Just shoot us this email, and we'll sort it out for you and get in touch with you as quick as we can and help you with whatever issue you might be having.
Okay.
So of the wealth of resources on this website, and that is true, okay, where are you going here?
I don't know. Where did you want me to go?
Go to the forums, please.
Okay.
We have a variety of forms that are standard that you all can use all the time. And we've tried to make them as convenient and streamlined as possible. But as I understand it, there's probably been a lot of changes from how you've done things in the past 3 years to how we're doing things now. For example, that top form is the sole source form. So it may look different than what you're used to, but if you work through the form, we just download it. If you go through it, it tells you everything that we think you might have a question about. And most of the forms are formatted that way, where if you start and read through it, it will tell you everything, and it will give you the law as well most of the time. So it may seem like a lot, but essentially what that is just trying to give you some clarity into what you're trying to do, essentially. Some of it isn't going to be applicable to you. Some of it we fill out internally, but most of the forms are formatted in a way that we hope is the most convenient for everyone using them. We know that sometimes they are burdensome, and we do ask for maybe more than you may want to put on there initially, but we're trying to guide you through the law in a way that works for you and for us, and that is legal. So anything to add on this?
Just to build on what Rick's saying there, the forms are, they're obviously focused on the executive branch agencies that fall under state purchasing's jurisdiction, but that doesn't mean that you can't take these forms and make them your own. By all means, go through and take a look, see what works for you. We can only speak through our process and how we do things with regards to the executive branch agencies for the state. But there's, as Rick was saying, there's a lot of relevant information here, and it may be really helpful for you around documentation and making sure that you kind of have everything in the event that an audit comes up. You can say, I went through, here's my due diligence. It kind of can provide some of that guidance. Not all of this is going to be relevant, right? I mean, you guys don't necessarily have to work with our Department of Technology Services for IT purchases, but maybe you have your own kind of technology services that you have to go through. And so you can kind of take this and make it your own so that you kind of have a template format to follow. It's definitely in the beginning when you start working through some of these forms, and even if you're just looking for some thoughts and ideas around how we do things, always, you're always welcome to take these and turn them into something that is more functional for you as an agency, because You know, the county's going to do things a lot differently than the state. You know, the cities or the school districts are going to do things differently from the state. But that doesn't mean that we can't leverage on each other's best practices and not recreate the wheel if something's already out there that you can start from. Does that make sense?
Let's look at another one. How about? Okay, actually, so here you see on the left, you can see we have solicitation forms. That's where we're at right now. And there are a ton of other things on here as well. There are form contracts, amendments, and purchase orders that you all can use and, you know, edit to your liking, essentially. There are, let's see, common mistakes made on contracts. Also a thing you might want to peruse every once in a while. We have amendment checklists, amendment guidelines, assignments, rare but important to do when they need to be done. And all of these forms, again, they will walk you through, essentially. And if you have one and something doesn't make sense, just call us. We'd be more than happy to talk to you about any of the issues that you might have with any of the forms, ever, always. And if you're trying to edit it and make it something that is more applicable to your county, we'd be more than happy to help you with that as well. We might have some insight that you all might not have dealt with before. Go to the left, yes. Okay, we also have a variety of standard terms and conditions that we always use, that you are all free to use as well. And again, you can edit them to your liking, put in different terms that may be more applicable to whatever it is you're looking to purchase. Again, there are just so many things on here.
Down here is something that is sometimes helpful that people sometimes overlook is if you're obviously public entity looking to do business with another government entity, we've got some terms here that you can start from if you kind of don't know where to begin. You know, sometimes all you need is a memorandum of understanding, an MOU. Sometimes you have to go through some sort of other process, but if you're looking for somewhere to start with kind of terms to agree on between two public entities, this is also really helpful to, again, give you kind of that starting point so you're not recreating the wheel. Hopefully it can save you a lot of time and make the process a little bit more expedient for you. Oh, question?
You guys have any template documents for requests for proposals and bids or qualifications?
Template documents for requests for proposals and bids, so for solicitations in general?
Yeah, qualifications, things like that.
We don't have a template for that, but we'd be more than happy to give you one that you can work off of. But we also have another thing here on the website. Where is it?
It's up here. It's right here. That?
Yeah. So this questionnaire, we often send out when we get a request, and essentially it just goes through line by line. What is it you're looking for? When do you need it done? Essentially all of the specifics of the procurement. And if you were to fill this out, again, some of it's not going to be applicable all of the time because we've made the forms in a way that they can apply so broad that we don't have to have specific forms for every single thing. But if you go through this will answer a lot of your questions and kind of help you sort out your RFP or whatever it might be. It'll help you answer a lot of the questions, and it will also bring up a lot of questions that you might have for the vendor.
To kind of add to that, we actually, so the state purchasing uses the Jagger system, formerly known as SciQuest, if some of you have ever heard that term before. We used to be on BidSync. This is the replacement to that. right? So within this system, we actually do have templates and formats that we can share with other, with you if you're interested. If you just kind of want to see how we format things, if this is a system or if you have interest in using the system, you can always reach out to us. We'll show you where some of that contact information is, and we can provide you with a little bit of additional training on that. We'll kind of touch on it a little bit today, but because we do all of our postings within the system, we've actually built like whole templates and libraries of questions and things like that in the system that we're always more than happy to share. With the caveat that, again, you know, this is our process. We don't necessarily know what all the intricacies of yours are, but we would love to, you know, love to be able to share it so that you can kind of have somewhere to start and then kind of go from there. The access portal, it's called the Utah, I didn't name it, okay? Let me just make that clear first. It's called the Utah Public Procurement Place. You can access it off of our website, and we'll show you where you can find some of that information, and then how you can request login information and set up on the system as well, if you're interested in using it.
Are any of you currently using that portal? Okay. So there are, as Wendy said, there are templates in there. If you're just doing paper RFPs without the system, we can send you something that we have made that you can work off of, absolutely. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yep. Yeah, we can export it out so that you can put it into a Word document, or you can use it through the system if you so choose. So that's kind of a good, I think that's kind of a good pause point. Does anybody have any other questions with regards to the forms? I mean, there's a lot of content on this website, and that was one of the reasons that we decided to not PowerPoint you to death. And instead, let's kind of navigate through this. Let's kind of talk through some of this stuff so that we can at least show you what's available. And then if there's more that we can talk to, then we can definitely kind of leverage on that. But it's at least practical knowledge versus just, I'm not a fan of death by PowerPoint, so.
I think all of these forms on here would be useful in a lot of situations. So don't sleep on this particular portion, because there's just so much that we have for you all to use. That being said, where would we like to go next?
I have a question,
Yes,
and this is a dumb question.
there's no such thing as a dumb question.
Make sure.
Sometimes we might give dumb answers, but,
So I assist a special service district,
okay.
and I don't know that they even know about purchasing state contracts. I mean, I'm looking for state
Cooperative,
purchasing 101.
okay.
This is
So special service districts are
why would they
definitely much smaller.
contracts? Why? Number one. Number two,
Oh, I'm sorry,
Okay.
what was one?
So
Sorry.
one was, why would they want to use state contracts?
state
Okay,
contracts.
okay.
That's number 101.
Okay.
Dumb for dummies. And number two is we have local businesses around here, you know,
Mhm.
like equipment,
Mhm.
Mhm.
bills.
Yep.
That's what they're buying, things like this.
Yep,
For search and rescue, how do we
Okay.
make sure they're included in a state contract, or are we excluding them by going to the state rather than our local, and that's what they want.
Okay.
They want to support local.
we actually get a lot of that, so let's take a step back. Let's go back to these state contracts really quick. Okay, so with regards to state cooperative contracts, firstly, one of the reasons that I would say use it is that saves you from having to run an RFP. It's already done. You can just go off and, you know, depending on what the instructions for use are, you can just go buy. You don't have to run an RFP. You might have to go and call and get some quotes just to see who's the cheapest at that moment, but you don't have to run a full-on solicitation. That'll save you so much time, so much money, so much effort, right? So that's the first piece. The second piece is, no, we don't exclude anybody. We try to invite everybody. all the solicitations are posted publicly. We try to let everybody know, everybody that we could possibly let know. I mean, that's not going to say that we have individually contacted every single local vendor in every single county. That's just not going to be humanly possible. But we do try to make it as public awareness as much as possible. When we first went to the new system, the new, I'm going to call it U3P, we did reach out to all the vendors that were currently on contract. We reached out to all of the state agencies and said, hey, if you are, if you're going to come on board with us, start letting your vendors know now. And this was almost 2 years ago, right, where we said, hey, get registered so that you can start getting these notifications for state solicitations. If we don't know they exist, they probably don't know we exist. And that's a fair question. But we do try to reach out. So with the school district here, I know that we've worked together quite a bit in trying to educate vendors to say, hey, if you don't get registered, we can't push the notifications out to you, because there's just no humanly possible way for us to know who necessarily to notify.
What's the length of that process? It's like if I were to let a vendor know, how long is it gonna take?
How long is it going to take for them to register? All they have to do is enter in their company name, their first and last name, their email address. They submit it. It sends them a notification to confirm their email address. They click confirm, and that email goes out pretty quickly. They click that notification. It creates their account in the system. They can start responding to solicitations right then. They don't have to do anything else. Now, if they want to start receiving the notifications, they do have to go in and select the commodity codes that apply to them. So if it's rental equipment for search and rescue, then they'll have to go find that commodity code and register for that, so that anytime that specific solicitation for anybody comes out that uses the system, then they'll get notified for that. So just as kind of an awareness for you, so that you know, is that we've got right now we've got on the Utah portion of the Utah Public Procurement Place, we've got, I think, last count was like 12,000 vendors specific to just Utah that have registered. That doesn't mean they're all in the state, but they've registered with our specific portal. But we also have access to an additional, I think, 60,000 that are in the universe of this new system, okay? But in addition to that, we've got over 100 public entities that are using the system with us. So it's not just the state. We've got the school district. We've got several school districts using it. We've got higher ed. We've got cities, counties that are all up and running on this. And that's just the ones that are posting on their own, right? We're not even including the ones that we do courtesy postings for. We'll touch on that in a little bit. But, those are additional public entities that all of these vendors are going to get exposure to those solicitations that they might have not been made aware of otherwise. With regards to your comment on purchasing local, I hear you. I'm a big fan of that. Like, if I can go to the Sips, right, versus the Starbucks, yeah, we'll swing by there. But there's a couple of things that you have to be conscientious of when you're buying some of that stuff. Is with the state cooperative contract, other than saving you time, money, and resources, you've got the protection of the state's terms and conditions already in place. That in almost every case I've ever seen, that gives you a better warranty, gives you better service, and just more access to support. If you've got a contract issue, you don't have to deal with it. You can turn it over to us and we'll handle it. And then you've basically got the power and the might of the entire cooperative supporting you on the back end. So that's, while it is run and managed by state purchasing and it's a contract with the state, it's applicable to all eligible users in the state. So a vendor on that contract has to recognize that they are, they're contracting essentially with every public entity in the state. So generally, your prices are going to be better.
It creates a lot more opportunity all around, essentially. If a vendor registers for one specific thing, and they go in and they put their commodity code in, they're going to see opportunities to bid on so many things that they wouldn't have seen just living outside of that world, essentially. So, the local rental place here, excuse me, I don't know if they have any desire to do business in other areas of the state, but they'd have the opportunity to bid on those things if they did.
And just to speak to something that Rick mentioned a little bit earlier around awarding these contracts regionally, when we put out a solicitation for a statewide contract, vendors have the opportunity to bid just for their region. So if you have somebody local here and we put out a solicitation for, like rental or sale of, of specialty equipment, they can quote for the whole state, they can put in a bid for the whole state, or they can just put in a bid for just, this region or even just this county, just depending on what they're able to serve. So we, by all means, we have tried to make it so that it is fairly competitive for locals as well, because, we're looking at, just for sake of an example, the mom and pop general store on the corner that has office supplies and wants to get a contract just to provide office supplies for their county, they're not going to be able to compete with an Office Depot or an Office Max at the state level, right? They're not going to, it's just not humanly possible. But could they provide better pricing within Box Elder County? Probably. They don't have as much of the overhead. They might not be able to provide that same service or that same pricing to anybody in Salt Lake County, but they can surely take care of the locals here. And that just might be a situation where they're awarded, Box Elder County. I mean, there's also, statewide coverage that's going to come if there's something they can't provide that an Office Max or Office Depot could provide, that then, you'd want to go out to them. But if you, in that instance, hey, they're there, they can provide better pricing where you are, there is an opportunity for that. And we've worked a lot with a lot of legislators and local businesses to try to facilitate that local competitiveness and transparency within our solicitations, because we do want to foster, providing the opportunities for the local businesses. It's easily recognizable that not everybody's going to be able to compete with the Walmarts and the Targets and the Staples and, and Lowe's and Home Depot, right? It's a fair statement, because shopping small and the small businesses, it's just a very different business dynamic. So we have tried and worked really hard to ensure that we kind of open this up as much as possible so that the local guys do have a chance. Now, if we're trying to reach out and they choose not to register, they don't get the notifications, we can't really do anything about that. But we're always happy to help vendors get registered. We're always happy to have the conversations with local vendors or even, special service districts that are like, hey, what can I do? We've worked with some of these vendors for a long time. The first thing you're going to hear from us is have them get registered, because suddenly they'll be, like Rick said, open up to a whole another world of opportunity that they may not have had exposure to before. That was probably a really long answer to your question, but hopefully that helps. We do work with a lot of the service districts to try to help bring in a lot of their smaller vendors. It's just some smaller vendors are not necessarily super excited about new technology. So, we will help them as much as they're willing to accept our help. But there is a bit of this that does require them to also, put a foot forward and be willing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and we're all, one second. Go ahead.
Lead directly here in a little bit.
Okay.
I guess one of my things that I need to retain from this meeting is when I go to search for something, and I'm trying to use the search engine, is this, I guess my first question is this a better portal just getting on the general website or going to this portal access? Does that have a better search engine?
Are you looking?
Is there any tricks? I heard Tom told me the other day, if you put it in quotations, it'll bring it up easier. What's some things to help find stuff besides calling you on the phone?
Yeah.
Every time?
So Tom's right.
So you're essentially talking about two different places. This that we're looking at right here is where you search for contracts. And as we said, it's an abomination right now. Yes, putting the if you know the contract number and you put it in quotes, you will be able to find it. But, I mean, that is not the case so many of the time. You don't even know.
Good, I mean, you're looking for tires, you type in tires.
Right. And the search results right now are terrible. You'll get a million results. Again, that is changing in a month. It will be like any other functional website. When you go and search something, it will work that way. The other place that you're talking about is looking for bids. So this is where you're going to find contracts. The bids that are out there are at a different place. They are at Utah Public Procurement Place. Again, a terrible name, but
You can also get to them here.
you can. It's linked right there. And do you want to just?
So it's off of the 4 vendors. You can go you can go over to current bids, and it'll get you there. Or if you, this is something that you can always share with the vendors as well. They don't have to have a login access or have registered yet to even see what's available. They can download a PDF of the solicitations. But if they want to search, they can just click current bids right here and type in, I don't even know what's out there. Do you have one open right now?
Yeah. What do I have up there right now?
Put in asphalt oil, just for interest sake.
There actually might be something in asphalt that I saw the other day. So there you go. That's what has a keyword of asphalt tied to it. But these are your bids, right? These are not your contracts.
Yeah.
But if a vendor wants to just go in and you want to share this information with your vendors, they can just go in and they can click this view as PDF, and it'll just download it as a PDF with all linked documents and everything that they need to have to prepare for a solicitation, to prepare their bid. Now, that doesn't notify them if there's an amendment or an addenda done to that solicitation, but it at least gives them a good jumping off point, and then they can make the decision if they want to register so that they can receive more notifications. But yeah, going back to what Rick was kind of saying is that was kind of 2 separate questions, right? Because that's the bid side. This is the contract side. And the contracts are obviously the ones that are available for you to use now. Again, we know it sucks, and I'm really sorry.
So in Bill's case, if he's looking for contracts about asphalt, the best place to go then is use the spreadsheet.
For the
So-
next month, yeah, that's going to be. Go.
Let's see.
Go ahead. Oh,
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah.
So hang on,
Okay.
I'm gonna search asphalt right now.
okay.
Live test right here, you guys. So we're searching asphalt. So there are a bunch of contracts in here that have asphalt as a keyword. Now, again, as part of the search improvements is that sometimes the system doesn't wait or doesn't really recognize what a keyword is. So you have to be very conscientious of that. And that's just on the current search. We've kind of updated and amended the new search to better recognize. It's going to be more Google-esque, I guess is a better word for it. So it should be easier for you to find what you're looking for. But so again, I would recommend a single word keyword in quotations, and hopefully your keyword is specific enough. Like if you put in computers,
You're gonna get a lot of results.
that's probably going to bring back like half of the contracts that we have out there, because
So if you
at
put in
some
like
point in
lawn
time,
service, you'll get everything that has to do.
because it has the word service, right? So it's not recognizing that, and that's part of the problem. But the other thing I think that she mentioned, and let me kind of go,
Yeah. So when you first go
Back
into the
here.
website, before you search for anything, there's a place right down here where you can download this spreadsheet that for the next month is going to be, I mean, I guess you could use it in conjunction with the search function, but honestly, when someone has a question about a contract, this is the first place I go. I don't even bother with the search. It's a waste of time most of the time. So if you have some idea what you want, you can Control F, which when you Control F, it searches the whole document for whatever word you type in. And that's how I find all of the contracts all the time. It's the first thing that I do. Again, I don't bother with the website right now. I'm very much looking forward to a month from now when it is a functional
March 19th.
search engine. But yeah, is there anything anything else? Does that answer the question?
So kind of to build on that, in conjunction, if you want to use both of them together and get the full contract documents, you can reach out to the contacts, kind of those 3 columns that I have highlighted there, or you can kind of find the contract you're looking for, get the number, and then go back to the contract search and just plug in the contract number so then you can get the full contract documents. I mean, we're trying to make this as easy for you to use for the time that you have to use it as possible. Yep, Tom?
So a lot of times what I hear is we'll send out stuff and people will say, well, this is my state pricing. And so when I go and find, so once I find, how do I make sure when people say they're giving me the state pricing, that it really is the true?
Are they, firstly, do they hold a state cooperative contract? That's the first question, is because a lot of vendors will be like, well, that's our state pricing. What does that mean? Because our state cooperative contracts, again, tying back to kind of the earlier question, is that ties in all your terms and conditions, your warranties, your service requirements, all of that stuff. And that's not necessarily something that comes if somebody just says, oh, you're a public entity, I'm going to give you this government pricing. That doesn't include all of that. So if you've looked and they are on contract, and they're associating with that number, that and the quote process is required or whatnot, then that's the price that they're giving you, kind of ties in all of that other stuff. If you have concerns about the pricing, or if something kind of feels off, always feel free to reach out to the contract manager that's listed on there to kind of say, hey, I got this quote, but something about it seems off because you're going to have some information, some additional information to support that statement. And they can do the follow-up, and they can work and try to see if there's something going on, if there's an issue or whatnot.
You can also verify it yourself, though. If you do know what the contract is, like, you want to go look at a summary or the full contract, either of.
Do you have a specific contract?
No, I don't care.
You wanna look at a complicated contract with the fuel index contract.
Yeah, that one, I'm not touching that one. That one's all yours.
If they do say, like, if you reach out to a vendor and they do tell you, this is our state pricing, and they do in fact have a state cooperative contract, you can go and look, go to an asphalt one, whatever.
Tires would be a good one, because you do have local vendors in Tremont that are on the state contract list for tires, like Archibald.
Uh-huh.
And that you do have vendors that are in the local area that will give you a state contract price for the tire,
Yeah,
but they're not on the bid list per se.
I could see that happening all the time, just trying to stay competitive, right? They'll
Yeah.
give you the exact same price that we have negotiated.
And they'll,
I've seen them come
and
in
it's,
a little bit
yeah,
higher.
and
Yeah.
it's public pricing, right? The contracts are public, so they can really go in there and they can undercut our state cooperative pricing. But keep in mind, them undercutting that state cooperative pricing doesn't give you everything else that comes with it. So tires is actually a really good example. A few years back, I think everybody can probably recall that really bad accident that happened with the Utah State students, right? And there were terms and conditions that didn't come into play and that were not negotiated properly, and they came back and they said, well, we'll replace the tires for you. That's the compensation. When how many students' lives were lost? And that's not indemnification that you'd be able to get if you just kind of went, oh, okay, if you just go and look at just cost, that's not something that you're gonna have the safety and security of. Because right now, I think on these contracts, there's like $3 million in indemnification that they have to cover, right? It's not just, we're gonna replace the tire that blew out that caused that huge wreck. It's, we're gonna do that, and then we're going to somehow try to recompense you in some way.
Yeah,
Because there's a lot of implications involved there.
there's a lot of benefits that come with the terms and conditions that we negotiate that, quite honestly, most people probably won't do or wouldn't do because it's not a thing that you think of oftentimes when you're thinking of tires, right? If you're just someone going to purchase some tires, you're not thinking necessarily, maybe you're thinking about the warranty, but are you thinking about any indemnification? No. But we always are thinking of those things because our office is filled with attorneys. So
Half our
That's-
staff is lawyers
that's what
right
we
now, you
do.
guys.
So there are a lot of benefits just outside of pricing that come with the use of the contract.
Yeah, so be aware when you're comparing costs, because a lot of these contracts, they do have the price catalogs listed. So anybody can go online and search for a contract and find the lowest price and undercut it. But it doesn't come with all of the extra benefits and kind of almost security features that some of the state contracts come with that will provide you with protections. And then, did you have a question?
Well, I
Or
just
comment?
wanted to comment.
Uh-huh.
You know, that becomes bid shopping, and then what you do is undercut the state contracts, and so a vendor, it becomes to their advantage not to get the contract, and then they just throw out a lower number because they have the low bid. And so if we do that, in the long run, it's gonna raise prices.
So we'll actually show you, there's some content online that we've got under some agency trainings that you can actually see the value of using a cooperative contract versus not. So sometimes the price will be a little bit higher, but if you just think about all of the additional things that you can save and the additional items that, terms, the warranties, the service calls, the delivery, sometimes it's the little things that you don't think about.
Maintenance is a huge one. Let's go look, we just go into one so we can, let's go with the rental equipment. Let's just go look. Rental equipment without an operator. So, again, I have to preface this by saying this is going to change in a month, but.
It'll look similar.
Yeah,
This part will still look similar.
It'll look very similar, all the same information will be there, but on our website, you have access to a summary document, which again, will be going away, but you have all that information on the new website in a much more easily digestible and findable format. But if you do want to verify a price, oftentimes you can get it on any of those three. It's obviously going to be in the full contract, it's probably going to be in the summary document, and it's definitely going to be in the pricing as well. So if you do want to verify what the price is and what exactly
no
is
idea what
on
I'm
that
looking at.
contract.
So this is an approved vendor list. So this actually just shows all of the vendors that are available for the different categories and all the equipment that they've got available. So this
We're not gonna have
this,
the price.
I'm like, this is a bad example. But with an approved vendor list, there's different instructions for use for how you can get, the quotes from which qualified vendors and whatnot. But yeah, to echo what Rick is saying, more often than not, you'll be able to validate that pricing. And chances are, a lot of times you're kind of already know sort of where the pricing needs to be. And you can, and if something seems a little, for using a lawyer term, if something doesn't pass the smell test, give us a call. We'll do the research, we'll do the legwork, we'll have the conversations with the vendors to make sure that you guys are getting what you guys need to get with regards to pricing under the state contracts. Yeah, question?
How do we know that we've successfully activated the terms and conditions, rather than just getting the price?
Well, that's the best part about these contracts. The terms and conditions are sort of like insurance, right? You hope that you never have to use them, but if you have an issue, then bring it up with us and we'll take it to the vendor and say, based on the service you provided for this agency, this is what we're seeing. Then they have to answer to it to us. And sometimes it's a little bit, it's throwing the might of the state as opposed to a city or a county into it. And vendors are more apt to listen when we're saying, we're the state. We're coming for some answers here. You need to provide us with clarification on why you're not meeting these terms. And so I feel like that's kind of how we can manage through that. If there's something specific that you have a question about within a term on a contract, then we can address that specifically, but.
I initiated the terms and conditions of the state contract. I had a front steer tire on a diesel blowout. It caused damage to the truck. Luckily,
Uh-huh.
it wasn't severe. We lost the tire, some fender and some stuff like that. I think it came to $6,000-7,000. And it took me almost a calendar year to receive a check back from Bridgestone, but I informed the vendor to Bridgestone that I wanted to initiate the terms of the state contract. Replace the tire and the damage. It
Yep.
took a long time to wrangle it out, but we ended up getting a check.
Yeah, did you work with anybody in our office at all on that, or did you just? So, I mean, yeah, I mean, you can do it on your own. Yeah.
Initiate that and have them cover the cost of the damage.
Yeah, that's a great example, because at the end of the day, I mean, if that hadn't gone through and he hadn't been able to get the check, it could have just been a phone call to our office for us to say, hey, this is how much you're getting in sales from us. We could very easily cancel this contract because you're in breach of contract if you're not going to meet your
I
terms.
think there's like 3 or 4 major tire brands that have contracts
Yep.
with the state.
Yeah, we have a lot of, go ahead.
Oh, no, I think
We have a lot of solutions when it comes to performance on the contract. A lot. They're buried in the terms and conditions. You don't necessarily have to think about them. If someone is not performing as you think they probably should, they probably aren't. And we can probably get them to, or we can cancel the contract very easily. So, go ahead, what was your question?
Can I ask, so kind of follow, how do you document that it was purchased on the state contract?
So the very basic guideline that we provide to vendors is that they are to provide the state cooperative pricing if somebody cites that they are using the contract, and then you should have the contract number. And if you just have that as, requesting a quote under this contract number or whatnot. So in your documentation, when you're going out to do the purchase, if you've got it and then they provide it to you, generally most vendor invoices will have some sort of a reference to the state contract on there. But vendors actually have to report to us on a quarterly basis all of their sales.
Yeah.
So if we need to do the research to go on the back end and say, okay, they're saying they bought it, this was the date of the purchase, we can go back and kind of bridge it against, okay, what sales were made under, for this agency, how much was it? Then we can actually go through and, request at any point in time their records. We've got that as part of the terms in the contract. If that's something that we have to validate, we do audit the contracts. We have a third-party auditor that goes out and audits our statewide contracts periodically, just to make sure that everybody's being charged what they're supposed to be charged. That if there's, if they're overcharging, then we'll get a credit back. And if we can apply that credit we can provide that credit back to specific customers, then we do that. If we can't identify where the overcharges may have happened, then we can, we'll actually just set it aside in a bank and reinvest it into the program to hopefully improve the program overall so that it's more beneficial for everybody involved.
Yeah, and from an evidence standpoint, if you send them an email, which the business world is predicated upon emails now. Your email saying to this vendor, I would like to purchase XYZ off of the state contract, that's sufficient for us and for anyone when it would come into question, if it were ever to, essentially.
We just put the state contract number on the purchase order.
That,
Then you have a.
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, and we always advise too, even if you get a phone quote, follow up with an email. It's the make sure that everybody's on the same page, make sure that you have something in writing. Even if they don't respond, you sent it, you've got it there. You've started, again, essentially that paper trail. So we're huge supporters of documenting everything, because an oral agreement at the end of the day is not going to hold up, right? So if you got a phone quote, I would either request them to, email it over as well, or fax it over, or you put it in an email and send it over to them and just confirm that this is what you got. So it's again, kind of building your own paper trail just for your due diligence and documentation.
And it's beneficial for them as well, to have something, having a piece of paper there to remind you of something that you need to do is probably better than just something floating around in your head that you might have said, essentially.
Yep, question?
Is every vendor that registers or contacts the state to be a vendor, do they get qualified, or do they get accepted, or do you only accept a certain few or a certain number?
Okay, so that's a really good question. So in case you guys couldn't hear it, that was a question of, does every vendor who registers or contacts us to get registered, gets certified, gets approved? And I think the verbiage is what confuses a lot of vendors here. Because not every vendor is going to hold a state cooperative contract number, whether that's referred to as a contract or whether they're referred to as master agreements or if they're on an approved vendor list. It's a verbiage thing now. So if a vendor registers with the Jagger system, the U3P system, that doesn't mean they hold a contract. That means that they are registered to respond through the system to any open public bid opportunities. Okay? So that means that they can respond through the system, they can receive push notifications through the system. That does not mean that they have a contract. Okay? They have to respond to a competitive solicitation in order to, and be awarded through whatever the award evaluation and award process is, and be, you know, and have gone through the full contract process, agreeable terms, all of that stuff, then they're given a contract number. Okay? Our contract numbers generally start with 2 letters and up to 4 numbers. So if a vendor calls us and says, hey, how do I get approved as a vendor? The first thing we say is, have you registered with the system to be able to respond to a solicitation? I can't just give you a contract number. And so that's an education piece that we're working through with a lot of vendors right now. We get that question a lot. If a vendor chooses to register with the system, nothing is going to stop them from being registered. They will be able to register through the portal. There's nothing, we don't turn anybody away. We want all the competition that we can foster. But for them to receive a contract, there's another process they have to go through for that. So if you reach out to a vendor and they say, oh, well, I have a state contract, then you should be able to get that contract number from them. Or if you need them to contact us to understand if they actually hold a state contract, that's okay too. If you want to reach out to us to confirm, by all means. That's actually a question that comes through our website a lot from vendors as well as public entities that sometimes, I mean, even some vendors who have contracts from 10 years ago where their contracts have expired, they still circle back and say, well, I had a contract with you. Okay, let's talk through the process. Let's do the research. So we kind of have to help educate them. But if that's something you're just not sure about, you can always defer them back to us and we'll kind of figure out what the root cause is and what's going on for you.
Yeah,
add to that?
we help vendors all of the time, either with the contract that they have, or navigating SideQuest, or the Utah Public Procurement Place. We're more than happy to help any of them, and all of the time. We're constantly fielding questions, and we're more than happy to.
Any other questions right now? I think this is really good discussion. And this is sort of what we were hoping that we would get. Kind of making sure that, you know, you're getting the most out of the time that you're here. Yep.
Can you explain the unique process with vehicle purchases?
Vehicle AVLs, we should have brought Nick. So, firstly, Nick Hughes, NICKHUGHES. He is the contract manager for all of our vehicle approved vendor list vendors. The last time that I went through the process of understanding, we've just refreshed all of these vehicle contracts, is that all of the dealerships were required to provide a minimum % off. So when you need to purchase a vehicle, so whichever dealerships and whatnot that apply for the vehicles that you're looking for, you can reach out to them for a quote based on, the instructions are pretty clear in the, actually, if you can find the contracts on here, right? Let me see if I can pull one up. You can reach out to them for a quote, and they should provide you with with whatever a response to your quote request. If they do not provide you with a quote request, with the quoted price for that specific purchase that you're looking to make, they still are obligated to uphold a minimum discount on off their list price. So whatever that is, and then, you know, that's a minimum. So depending on a lot of these dealerships, they might give you way more off, just depending on the time of the month and how many vehicles are on the lot and what, you know, what they've got going on the back end. You might get some percentage off, the base percentage off, plus a whole lot more, just depending on when it is you're going out for purchase. So that's kind of a really basic overview, but
I'm
let's
not
see
familiar
here.
with these at all.
So there's actually some general instructions on how you need to go through the process. It looks a little bit lengthy. I would say take a look at it, you know, kind of go through it. If you have questions, here's Nick's contact information. He's been going through this with these guys for, well over a year now. He's been trying to kind of get it to a good, smooth process for all of the using entities for these contracts. They can be a little bit confusing, so if you have questions, please feel free to reach out to him. He's great about kind of guiding you through that process that first time. And then once you kind of go through it that first time, it seems to be much easier for everybody after they've done it once. So that may or may not have answered your question, but it at least gives you a kind of an overview, and that's about as much as into detail as I know on these contracts, because we do get a lot of use on them. Okay, any other questions? Anything even specific to certain contracts or anything like that?
Yeah, it really could be anything. Why don't we?
Well, I'm kind of curious about SideQuest Jagger now.
Okay.
And how that's going with, I've had a lot of vendor complaints about how user unfriendly that is. And we've even had vendors pay for training to learn how to use it because they were afraid that they were specifically some of our larger building and architectural firms that are saying, we're afraid we're gonna miss something on this. And so is it going any better or, that's initially, but.
Yeah, that's really good feedback from us. So I am actually the system admin. Rick is actually one of our system admins as well. So when you email, so the email address is SideQuestAdmin@utah.gov. That comes to our team. We address all the issues on the vendor side as well as on the user side. But it's sort of, it's been very polarizing is actually how it's been. It's change, right? Change is hard, especially as drastic of a change as that was from the old system, where it was very upload a document, and it was sort of a email out everybody, here's the, go here to find the document, and then they come back and then they upload a document. There's a lot more flexibility in the new system, and I think it's just kind of a training thing as well.
Yeah, the flexibility makes it more confusing for people because there are so many more things that you can do. It's just kind of like, where do I go to do this simple thing that I need to do when there are all these options? And again, we will walk them through everything, and it is kind of like an information overload type situation there.
Yeah. Again, vendors either love it or they hate it. And from what we've seen, the ones that seem to hate it more are the ones that are a little bit more averse to change. They're more accustomed to, hey, let me just upload this whole document. But they can still do that in the system. It's just a little bit of a different process. So with some of those big architectural firms, the state's Division of Facilities and Construction Management, so DFCM, they use the system for everything. They use the Utah portal for everything. So a lot of those similar types of companies are going through it with DFCM as well. And we've had there was the initial shock of, oh my gosh, this is so different. But we've worked through a lot of that, and if you need to refer vendors back to us, we're more than happy to do that. And this is just kind of reaching out as well. If you've got vendors up here that you want to hold a vendor training session with, and you just kind of want to invite them, and you think that they'd be interested in kind of learning more about the system, let us know. If you're willing to facilitate, we're willing to show up. because we have done vendor training sessions as well in partnership with a couple of other agencies, and it seemed to help. Sometimes they just need somebody to vent to who understands what they're talking about.
And it gets easier with time, obviously, but the first time you go on there, no, it's not the most intuitive thing to deal with. It just isn't. But after you've done a few of them, it gets much easier. And one of the, we can touch on courtesy postings.
Yeah, we'll touch on that in just a second.
Our trouble is we don't use it really often. So, you get on it, learn it, figure it out, and then.
Right.
And then you don't use it for a while.
And then you don't use it for 2 or 3 months, and then you wonder if your password's even still good. All those
Right,
kinds of
right.
things.
So,
Yeah.
We struggle with that.
so that's actually a really good segue into what I mentioned previously, what Rick just brought
So-
up around courtesy postings.
We do courtesy postings for everyone. And essentially what it is you can send us whatever it is that you have, and we will take care of, we can take care of everything. Or if you want us to just post it, we can just post it. And here it is on the website. There's a simple, there's an email address. I don't think the form is actually right.
It's right here. It's the purchasing solicitations at utah.gov. The form's not here, but when you reach out to us and you say, hey, can you guys just post this for me? What we'll send back to you is actually basically a kind of an agreement that allows you to select how much you want us to be involved in your process. Because obviously everybody's process is not state purchasing's process, right? And we're not gonna force our process on you because we don't know what the intricacies of your policies and, any of your different ordinances or anything are. But we'll help you as much as you want our help. So you can actually select some different levels of service. It can be something as simple as, we've already done everything, it's already reviewed. I don't want to go through and try to learn the system again to post my once every 3 months. Can you guys just do it?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do it. And we can even do it in a way that allows you to be added as an owner of the event, so you can go in and you can look at it as you go. So then you don't have to relearn the system every quarter. Or we can do the whole thing for you, where you come to us and you kind of say, hey, we want to put this out for a bid or for an RFP, and we can help you develop the solicitation. We can take it through the whole process. We can help you with your evaluation process. We can help you with negotiating the contract. It's up to you how much you want us to be involved.
Yeah, and often it starts one place and ends another. I'm doing one right now for a charter school. They need some special education services, and when it first came in, it was just, hey, post this, and then what they sent me, there was no way anyone was going to respond with any clarity to what they had given me, so I started working with them and developing the solicitation in a way that people would actually respond to. So even if you don't know exactly how to do the solicitation, we can help you. And we're more than willing to help you with any questions that you might have, and maybe have some insights that you might not think about, to get it handled in a way that is both legal and expeditious. So
There's two highlighted points of this, right? Is that we can take a lot of that work off of your plate, right? That's the first thing. The second thing is it's free. We don't charge you for this service. If you need our help, we will be there. If you need us to show up to help you with something, we'll be there. But we kind of need you to tell us what you need, at least kind of from the beginning, and then we can kind of evolve that if necessary. But we're in the system. All of us are in the system in the office all day, every day, because that's how we run. So the whole, what the school district's saying about how not posting very frequently, and so you kind of have to relearn every time, we get it. And so we're more than happy to answer the questions and kind of guide you through it each time. And over time, it gets a little bit easier. But if you just want to circumvent that, you can always just go through us.
Yeah.
We're more than happy to do it. And especially for smaller agencies that maybe have a very limited staff, or a staff that wears 1 to 10 different hats, depending on who you're talking to at that moment, we will kind of act as that, augmenting your staff off to the side there. We'll do whatever we can to kind of help you be successful.
Yeah, I just, another one comes to mind that I did for Tooele County. When it first came in, I think it was the county assessor who reached out to us, and they're doing some road work of some kind, and they had, I think they had an engineering firm develop the RFP, but after I looked through it, it was still missing some of the things, and if we had just posted it, it would have turned out fine. But again, we still just look through whatever it is and make sure that we're eliminating any hiccup that might come up that you might not have thought of. And we're more than happy to do it all the time.
And again, if you already have access, you're not going to lose your access. We can just do kind of the technical portions of it for you, and then you can go in and you can look at it as well. If that makes it a little bit easier for you to just have to do the review portion of it, we can make that work as well. So sort of we can do what you need. We just need to know what it is that you need.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and this is one of those things that we talk about, we touch on a little bit, but we don't really get into a lot with a lot of entities. But we have, over time, especially over the last year or so, have recognized that while we may have a staff of almost 30 strong, it keeps going to sleep on me, we may have a staff of almost 30 strong, that everybody else has a staff of 2, and you're wearing 5 different hats each. And so you don't really have as much time and attention to focus on the specific procurement and getting what it is that you need. So we want to be able to help you, but it's up to you. I mean, we're not going to force ourselves on you, but if you feel like that's something that you or your agency can maybe take advantage of, feel free to reach out. We're more than happy to help. Even if it's just an initial, hey, we don't know if we want to do this or not, just, give us a call. We'll have the discussion and we can kind of see what works for you. Okay? Yep.
Can you address some of the laws over the last couple of years? And maybe, I know that it's been extensive, but could you maybe give us a quick rundown of the things that you think have changed your procedures most day to day, which would also affect those of us, especially in smaller entities that are trying to keep up with those?
I've only been here 5 months, so I don't know if I can address a lot of those changes. What comes to mind?
There, off the top of my head, there are a couple of things that do come to mind for me. The first one is professional services. So it used to be, professional services is under administrative rule. And again, all of you may not be subject to our administrative rule, but it's small purchases of administrative services. So for us, small purchases of goods and services, there's a $1,000 per item threshold, $5,000 for the whole basket. And then if it goes over that, then the agencies that have to work with us, the executive branch agencies that are under our jurisdiction, they have to reach out to us for us to work with them on the small purchase up to $50,000 for goods and services. And we're talking like your basic services, like, mowing the lawn and whatnot, anything that's not on contract, but lawn services. So forget that I said that. But professional services, we're talking about if you need somebody that's specific, architectural services, for example, or somebody with specialized training or capabilities, right?
Often consultant.
A lot of consultants fall into that professional services bucket. Mm-hmm. So in the last year, the rule did change on that. For us, it used to be up to $50,000. You review 2 sets of qualifications. You pick whoever you feel is the most qualified, and then you work with them, direct negotiation for pricing. But it is a $50,000 hard cap. If you think you're going to go over, then you'd have to jump up to do the $100,000 rule. Still under small purchases for professional services, because we learned that consulting services generally don't fit into that $5,000 bucket, right? So up to $100,000. So the $50,000 up to $100,000, you had to get a minimum of 2 quotes, preferably 3, from the two or three most qualified vendors, and then you'd have to go low quote. That rule has been amended now to actually be up to $100,000 by direct negotiation, which means you have to review the qualifications of 3 vendors and document all of this and kind of go through the process of making sure that you're really, doing objective apples to apples comparisons.
We have a form.
We have a form
online.
that can help you through this.
Yeah.
So kind of to help you document through the process. But then you can just identify who you have determined to be the most qualified and work with them through direct negotiation on pricing and scope of work and everything. So that's the biggest one that kind of comes to mind for me. Couple of,
Does that cover architectural services too? Isn't architectural services a requirement to look at their qualifications first? And
Yeah.
then- Or has that changed? 'Cause
So
we've
the-
always looked at qualifications first.
so there's a threshold. There's always been a threshold. It's the threshold piece that's changed. It's not necessarily the who it's applicable to, but the threshold piece has changed.
Yeah.
So again, the administrative rule doesn't necessarily apply to everybody. It depends on whether or not you've adopted it. So that's something that's changed for us. Another one that it's not necessarily a code or rule change so much as a process change for us that's provided more clarity is, I'm going to go back to the form because I can't remember the words, because it was the formerly known as sole source, right? It's this award of contract without engaging in a standard procurement process.
Another horrible name.
Because let's not just call it sole source. Let's test everybody. So with regards to this, sole sources used to be granted a little bit more. We didn't have as much diligence around what a sole source really was. So we've actually kind of, for us, we've put in a little bit more structure around what is a sole source. And it's not just that's the only vendor in the whole world. It can include a piece, something called transition costs. I don't know if any of you have had a lot of experience with transition costs, but for us, it ties a lot into either equipment or IT especially. If you've got a system in place, I'm going to use like school districts, right? My kids are in Jordan School District, so everybody has either Apples or Chromebooks, right? We're going to assume we're at a school that has all Apples. Well, for them to go to something else is going to be an astronomical cost if they don't get something that's part of that Mac OS software. So for them, in that case, there isn't just one company that provides computers. And Apple, while they're the manufacturer, they're not considered a sole source because you can buy it through a reseller, right? You can buy it at Best Buy, you can buy it from any of our PC store contracts that provide the services. But you can document out how much will it cost to transition from this to this. And if that cost, it just doesn't make sense, it's not in the budget, there's nothing that you can do to be able to justify that change, that can also fall into this award of contract without engaging in a standard procurement process. So that can be considered a sole source because it's not a rational and justifiable expenditure of public funds to change from one system to another just because. Does that make sense?
Just because someone would be cheaper.
Yeah, just because maybe, bottom line, a Chromebook's going to be cheaper than a MacBook, right? I mean, nobody's going to question that, but does it make sense on the whole? So you kind of have to look at the bigger picture, look at the length of the contract and that sort of a thing. So we put a little bit more rigor around that to sort of help with justifying sole sources, because it's not just about a single source anymore. It's about this is the single source that makes sense for the expenditure of the public funds. Does that make sense? So that's another one that we've had. Yep.
Can I just one question on sole source, right? This will be pretty specific to what we do, but, so like USD commodities, for example, at a certain point, we send like bulk produce materials to manufacturers to turn into, say, apples, applesauce, apple slices.
Okay.
State, so child nutrition programs, the
Uh-huh.
state decides that there are 2 vendors vendors that will be allowed to process these bulk products in Utah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I want, like applesauce cups and I want some like mixed fruit cups. One of the vendors will provide all of those products. The other vendor doesn't provide the mixed fruit cups, but they would provide the applesauce cups.
Mm-hmm.
Do I need to like bid just the applesauce cups because both vendors bid theirs? Or because I know I want applesauce cups and mixed fruit cups, can I declare the one vendor sole source?
I would say, the vendor, if what you're looking for, essentially, the vendor needs to be able to provide what it is you're looking for in the time required and to the place that it's required to go to.
Okay.
And if one of those things, if they can't provide what you need, I would say that could rule them out from being in competition.
Yeah. The caveat to that I would say is, I don't see why that couldn't be like a bid.
Okay.
And then that one vendor can't meet your scope of work. Does that make sense? They can't provide everything in your scope of work.
Got it.
So then it kind of saves you the process of going through, because definitely for sole source, there's going to be more rigor. There's going to be more, more documentation that you're going to need to maintain. If you know, I mean, those might be the two that have been identified already, and that's great. But hey, maybe somebody out in somewhere else that is a new company, maybe they just got certified and you haven't, and you didn't know yet, right? Maybe they're just brand new to the list and they see it and they respond, and so it's one of those things that there's no harm in putting it out, even if there's only going to be one source.
Yeah, you'll often end up getting more information that may benefit you in the future if you put it out and just see what's going on in the vendor community.
I'm trying to think what else we've kind of changed up a little bit in our processes, just kind of to, can you think of anything?
No, but we haven't really, we could show them some things like from the vendor side. I don't know if that, I don't know if that would be
Oh,
beneficial
question?
or not.
Question, I don't know if it's more relevant, so you could answer accordingly. So on the Excel spreadsheet, it talked about contract type, I didn't know if that was something important for us to know.
No, it's actually more just the record keeping for us. So on the spreadsheet, let me pull up kind of what he's talking about here. So contract type. So what that means, do you want to?
Yeah,
Do you know
so I mean,
more?
it's beneficial for you all, but it's more an organizational tool for us essentially. There's going to be the state of Utah state contracts, which is the state of Utah
Best value?
Best Value Cooperative. There's going to be the NASPO contracts, which are contracts that we have with other states, and there's going to be the MCAP. I don't know anything about these ones. I don't
Okay,
know.
so kind of like what Rick was saying, so you've got the ones that are state, right? State of Utah, those are the ones that are just within the state. The NASPO Value Point, some of you may have heard the term NASPO Value Point before. It's a national cooperative with multiple states actually leading different contracts. We may or may not be the lead state for a specific contract, but because we're part of the cooperative, we can actually sign up to participate with any of these contracts. It did used to be WISCA. If you were familiar with WISCA, it became NASPO Value Point. It's actually the CEO for the NASPO Value Point is actually Doug Richens, who was one of our former state purchasing's directors from a few years back. So he's very familiar with the state's processes and kind of what's important to us, which is kind of nice to have somebody there. We actually, one of our assistant directors, Jennifer Saltz, if any of you remember her name, she actually just left to go be part of the NASPO organization. So she's leadership over there as well. So we've got a couple of really good kind of ears that we can speak with when we've got things that we want to bring up at that national level. But that also provides us with an opportunity where we don't necessarily have to run the procurement. We just post a notification that goes out that says for all of the local, for everybody that's registered with us to say, hey, The state of Utah plans to participate on this national cooperative solicitation that, the state of Minnesota has put out, or the state of Nevada has put out. If you're interested and, can want to respond, by all means. But this is our notification to you that we are planning to participate. We don't necessarily execute every agreement with every awarded vendor on NASPO Value Point, but some of those contracts are really beneficial. So you're gonna see things like software VAR, which is the value-added resellers. All of your, you can get almost all of your off-the-shelf software off of that contract, and it's not a state contract, it's actually a national contract that's led by the state of Arizona. So there's definitely a lot of opportunity for us to take advantage of the cost savings of the national buying power as opposed to just the state. And then MCAP is, I don't remember what the letters stand for,
Minnesota Medical Cooperative something, is that what it is?
but it's basically medical related. It's run by the state of Minnesota, but it is ties into a lot of medical needs for Department of Health, uses it a lot. Some of the higher eds, medical facilities, but there's even stuff that's available for everybody. Things like defibrillators that you might want to have in your offices, things like that. That's kind of specific to that little niche. Dentistry, dental equipment, that's available under the MCAP contracts as well. So we try to kind of be conscientious of the different cooperatives so that way we can take advantage of. Within the state, though, NASPO Value Point, national cooperatives wise, NASPO Value Point is the only one that actually meets the Utah Procurement Code, where we make sure that anything that we're going to participate on is aligned with the procurement code as best as possible in order for us to be able to use them. Okay, so that's the types. Our battery's running low, Tom.
That categorization, essentially, contract
Ooh,
type
now it's very low.
isn't going to be all that useful to you all the time for many reasons,
But we're plugged into power, so are we unplugged over there? Okay. So, yep.
How do you search on that spreadsheet?
On this spreadsheet,
And how do you sort or filter?
okay, so there's a lot of ways you can do it. I personally think the easiest way is to simply hit Control F. Okay, that means Control Find, and you're going to type in whatever word you want, and it's going to give you some result. So when you just typed in computer, and if you just hit Find Next, it'll bring up every single contract and every single category that has the name computer in it. Is that the most efficient way? No, it's not. But once you get to one, then you can narrow by the portfolio name.
it just brightened. So
Um,
yeah, I think we're good.
You can narrow by the portfolio name or the category. Those are going to be the best way. So just narrow it down by whatever. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, you can do it that way. You can. So I guess really, if you want to narrow broadly, I would go to portfolio name and just pick whatever you think might be applicable. So for computers, computer equipment and peripherals is obviously going to be a thing. Is it sorting by IT now? Is that
Well, yeah, I've got
Oh,
categories IT.
Okay, so you can go to the category. Again, that's going to be even broader than the portfolio.
So it kind of narrows as you move to the right.
Yeah.
So category is your highest, then portfolio. Again, this is, it's a short-term solution right now, but if you do have something specific, I think the best use is to kind of figure out kind of what you think you're looking for and call Justin. Email Justin and say, hey, I'm looking through this, I'm
Yeah.
a little bit confused, or hey, I'm looking through this and I can't find what I'm looking for, can you help me? And,
Because there are a lot of contracts now. And what you're looking for could be on multiple. So the easiest thing is going to be just to call us if you're having any trouble. But if you find it right away, wonderful. Hopefully with a new search engine, you find everything you need immediately. Yeah.
Cautiously optimistic. So we've been working on it since last May. So we've tried to make sure that it wasn't just like a rush job. We're hopeful that it'll actually meet all of the needs and address all the concerns that have been brought up with regard to the current search. So, but if you are coming on March 22nd for that PEP session, then we'll actually be going through a demo of it. We'll kind of talk through the process that got us to the system. It was actually a pilot of a different type of solicitation process that we went through. RFP, but a little bit of a variation to that. So I know we've spent a lot of time on contracts, which is great. Do we want to take a quick break and then kind of circle back to a couple of other things? There's definitely some more information on here that we'd love to be able to share with you, so that way you can kind of use the system as resources, or do we want to just keep trucking along?
There are drinks and snacks available.
I'm going to take maybe a 10-minute break. All right,
Sure.
I'm seeing nods.
Sure.
The bathrooms are upstairs or downstairs and all the way to the east.
Okay, so 22, so 10:40. So we've spent a lot of time on the state contracts and touching a little bit on the code and rule stuff. The image is called The Bank, but it was a cool looking building that we picked. But there's a lot of content on these pages that'll, some of it we've touched on, but we definitely want to kind of circle back so that you know that these resources are available to you. Just during the break, I had a couple questions on small purchases and kind of what's going on and what might be helpful for you as you kind of move forward in procurement. I just wanted to show some of these resources that we do have available online. And if you have additional questions on it, or if you're looking for additional training materials, you can always reach out to us. So again, from the homepage, I just went to 4 agencies, and hold on. Okay. 4 agencies. Did I click it? I swear I clicked it. There it goes.
Sorry.
So from here, you can log in if you already have it's just another link back to the same place to log into the SciQuest portal. If you hear the term SciQuest, if you hear the term Jagger, if you hear U3P, Utah Public Procurement Place, it's all the same system. It started out SciQuest just because that was the company that provided the software. They made us have to name our website. That is what it became, Utah Public Procurement Place. And then SciQuest was purchased by another company, and then they became Jagger. So that's sort of the history there. So it's all the same, okay? There's only one system. This is less applicable to you guys. This is just for agencies that run their contracts through us. This is just the link back to the cooperative contract search page. That page that I showed you around courtesy postings is right here if you want to take a look at it and see kind of what's available. This is where we're going to go: trainings, seminars, and newsletters. It's a little bit hidden, and sometimes that's why people can't find it, because there's just so much content on this website. We've tried to organize it in a way that makes it a little bit easier to navigate, but just because there is so much stuff, sometimes you still kind of need a little bit of help and direction. So under the 4 agencies, under agency training, we've got 4 categories here. Purchasing training, there's the SciQuest training, whatever's coming up in the PEP seminar, and then purchasing newsletters. How many of you actually knew that we put out a monthly newsletter? I'm like, I got one. I got one. That's more than I expected. So we do put out a monthly newsletter. It does highlight things like code and rule changes that might be applicable to you. It also highlights new state contracts, kind of little items of interest, updates to trainings, things like that. I'll show you where you can go to get registered for, signed up to be on the newsletter email list. It also is kind of what we use to send out things like, hey, the seminar's coming up, get registered for it, either via webinar. We don't provide lunch if you attend via webinar, just so you know. But we do provide lunch if you show up. It's a good lunch. It's really big, and it'll last you a couple of days. So just so you know. Not that I'm trying to sell all of you on coming to Salt Lake to hang out with us, but there is some incentive there, right? So we'll just kind of go through some of these sections so you can see what's available for you. Purchasing basics. Heard a couple of you guys are kind of newer to the scene. So you can kind of see we've got some small purchase information. This is kind of a PowerPoint you can go through to look at kind of what the general thresholds and everything are. Again, this is dependent on how much of the code and rule is applicable to your ordinances and what changes you guys have made within your individual municipalities, because not everything is applicable to everybody. Okay. A general kind of, this is kind of a cool little thing that we recently did, which is kind of a purchasing flow chart around where you can get some resources. Obviously a little bit more applicable to executive branch state agencies, but it can kind of give you some guidelines on where to go for your agencies, and kind of what information you need to have to get you to that solicitation and that contract. When we were talking about the value of a state cooperative contract, we've actually got a PowerPoint that walks you through how beneficial it is. I think it is about buying a chair, like an office chair. So you think that there's not as, that's not as big of a deal, but once you kind of start walking through it and see the differences and what you can get, it's a little bit helpful to be able to put a real world item against some of the stuff that we've talked through, right? Just some more information around procurement fraud and how to handle when you're trying to purchase things for either attendance to conferences or trainings, or what the process we go through for applying for memberships is. Stuff over here, a lot of this is coming soon because we're still working through a lot of this to kind of make it as general as possible to be applicable to as wide of an audience as possible. Some of this stuff we talked through a little bit already earlier, but some of these items are also topics that come up at our quarterly PEP sessions. This is something that's new and helpful because obviously you guys all have your own contracts. But you might want to download this and take a look through it. It's just some guidance around managing a contract, some best practices, when to kind of pay attention to certain issues, or when to start looking, because it shouldn't be, when do you go out for a resolicitation? It shouldn't be, 5 days before the contract expires, which happens in our office. We get that. We get that from some agencies that are like, oh, the contract expires next week. Can we get something else in place, or can you just extend it forever? Yeah, neither of those are really, really rational answers, that we can just say yes to, but it kind of helps with that overall contract management. For those who are interested in joining the system, SciQuest training here, you can go through, if you just want to kind of check it out before you commit to coming on board, you can email us. Here's the email address, SciQuestAdmin@utah.gov. And we can get you set up in the test environment. So you can go in and you can kind of poke around and you can decide if that's something you want to do. Again, if you choose to not want to do that and you just want us to post it for you, we can do that as well, courtesy posting, right? But if you want to, this kind of gives you a chance to no commitments, be able to go in and kind of decide if that's something that's going to work for you. We do have a couple of training guides here that are all PowerPoint, step-by-step with screenshots, definitions, circles and arrows. Click here, do this. This is what this means, that sort of a thing. We've also got a couple of videos here already posted. We actually have some more videos that we've recently created that we'll be adding to this as well, so that you can do kind of training at your discretion, and then you can just come back to us with more questions or more specific questions on specific situations. So kind of in a nutshell there.
All those PowerPoints are very easy to get through. And they will tell you exactly what to push, where it is. It will walk you through everything very easily, essentially.
So the online small purchase trainings will show up.
If you come down here to small purchases, that's the PowerPoint. Right now, we've recently launched, the state's gone with a new learning management system. So we're actually working on loading all of that content online so that you can actually go through with, potentially with narration. I don't know if Tara's actually going to do narration, but it'll actually walk you through, and then you get the little certification at the end if you go through the training that way. So it was kind of a learning curve for us to get that back, to try to work on getting that back up online. But the content of that training is on that PowerPoint. Okay. So here is the section on the PEP seminar. So this has come up a couple of times now, right? Location, I was right on the date. So it is on Capitol Hill. It's in the state office building in the auditorium on the first floor. It starts at 9. We do provide beverages, no breakfast. I'm sorry. I keep negotiating for it. It hasn't happened yet. We have the parking map and everything. It is after legislative session has closed, so there will be parking. We do try to be conscientious of that. But this kind of goes through and, you can download and print a copy of the agenda. This kind of tells you where we're going through. Lunch provided if you're registered to show up in person, not through webinar. And then this is just what we're going through during the course of the day. Now, the reason that all of the breakout sessions are tied directly back to the procurement code is you may or may not have heard that state purchasing has recently launched a state of Utah certification for public procurement. It has an acronym. I cannot remember for the life of me what it is or
Probably a bad one.
how long it is. I think it's it's long. There's like 4 or 5 letters. But it is an internal to the state certification. It surrounds the procurement code. It's open book. It is a long test. There's like 125 questions, but they're multiple choice and true and false, and it's open book, so you can use the code and go through the code and respond to get that certification.
It's also a good way just to brush up. I mean, if you want to brush up and learn, what in the world is going on with these rules, it's a good way to do that because the questions are set up in a way essentially that you have to read a section of the code to figure out what the answer is, which is like, oh, that is how that is done. I get it, okay. And yes, it is lengthy. I think it took me 2 hours, 2.5 hours.
On average,
to
it's
go
taken
through it.
people in person in the office on the paper. It's been about 2.5 hours. We're in the process, just like a small purchase training, of putting it online. So you don't have to come to our office to take the test, so that you'll be able to actually just log in and through our learning management system and just kind of do the test as you go. Again, open book. There's no time limit on it. It just takes time. Okay, so that's the reason that the focus in this next session, or this next PEP session, is very code heavy. But again, this isn't going to be us reading the code to you. So you'll see there's, the breakouts are 45 minutes, and we're going to be covering 1, 2, sometimes 3 sections of the procurement code. So it's kind of a really good opportunity to get an overview of each of the sections, and then you can go back and kind of refer to the ones that are going to be more applicable to you. You can register here for showing up and getting your free lunch, or you can register here and be able to join us via webinar. And, when you're joining us via webinar, you get to see the presentations that are in the auditorium only. Because when you register, you have to identify the specific breakout sessions that you want to go to. And the bigger ones are in the auditorium, so you're kind of at the mercy of whichever breakout has the most people and shows up in the auditorium. But we are also going to be covering the code and rule updates and any changes that have passed through legislation. So it's an opportunity to kind of go through and see what's going to be coming up as we we move into the effectivity dates. Also, there is a link to all of our previous presentations, so you can kind of go back through and peruse some of that. I wouldn't recommend going much further back than maybe 3 PEP sessions, just because code and rule changes do come into effect, so some of that content might have changed, some of the applicability might have changed. And then, purchasing newsletter. For those of you who did not know that it existed, we do have previous issues available for you to peruse at your leisure. And if you would, oh, I don't know what's going on here. If you would like to be added to this, you can actually just shoot me an email. I can actually get you added to the group. I'll have cards available as well if you guys want to grab one. But it is kind of, it comes through, the stuff that comes through there is everything from other agency job postings. So if you have something that comes up that is open and you're looking for someone, you can shoot that job posting over to us and we'll blast it out to the big group. Or notifications like the PEP's coming up, or kind of anything kind of urgent or a big deal, or we do have the opportunity to communicate to a vast number of public procurement professionals out there within the state, so that you can kind of see what, get some information back from them, or just share what we've got. So it's a good notification point, but also, like I said, within the newsletter, we provide updates on new contracts, opportunities to join evaluation committees for any statewide contracts that are coming up, and also just be able to see, what's going on in the public procurement sphere that may be applicable to you. Any questions in here? So there's, like I said, there's a lot of stuff on this website, right? Another place to go to find our information is under contact. You can send an email. Just so you know, if you send emails through the website, they actually come to me. I may not be the one to answer them, but I will get you to the right place. But you can get a complete staff directory of all of, so Chris Hughes is our current director. So Kent Beer, some of you may remember that name. He retired at the end of December. And then, so we've got a pretty significant staff. So this is just state purchasing. Everybody under my name is state mail and part of general services. So state mail and print services and surplus property for the state. But this is everybody that we've got within state purchasing. So courtesy postings, we've got a pretty significant staff that can help. Questions and answers, that sort of a thing. We want to be available as a resource for you. Kind of on a side note, I kind of just brought it up briefly, is if you find that you have a need for something that is not currently on state cooperative contract, feel free to let us know. Because if you have a need, chances are reasonably high that somebody else probably needs it. If we can help you and run that procurement and do a statewide contract for it, we'd be more than happy to. And you don't have to run the procurement. You don't have to worry about the terms negotiations, but you can actually serve on the evaluation team and have a say in, in how the solicitation looks and how the procurement and how the evaluations go, because you can actually be the ones evaluating the vendors that come in. So we can give you kind of that opportunity to be a stakeholder in any of those procurements if you see something that is a need, or if something looks like a contract's expiring coming up in the next 6 or 8 months, you can always reach out to that contract manager to say, hey, when are you guys going out? I want to be a part of this. So you can always participate, and it does not necessarily require you to drive down to Salt Lake either. We are able to do, the virtual evaluation meetings now that we, at one point, were required to all be in the same room for. We have been able to do, the virtual evaluation meetings successfully now. Okay.
I have a question about signing up for the newsletter.
Uh-huh. It is through Google. I didn't set up this portion of the website, so I don't really know what's going on. But if you can just send an email through the contact us
Yeah.
and just say, hey, can you add me to the newsletter list? We can get you added. Okay. So that was sort of just more me talking at you, but is there anything additional specific that you guys want to cover? Any questions that we haven't been able to answer or that we haven't brought up topics wise?
Okay, so I just had a question during the break about a vendor who more than likely had a contract with us in the past, and that contract probably expired for whatever reason, and they still think that they are on state contract. It happens all of the time. This is essentially the answer to your question. He probably did have a contract before, but he doesn't have one now. But he can. It just has to be solicited. And that happens constantly with vendors. Many of them probably have zero idea when the expiration date of their contract is. So that's just a thing to be aware of, essentially.
We do have limitations on contract extensions. It's a pretty rigorous process that we have to go through to request a contract extension. Some vendors just kind of assume that we can just grant them, once they have a contract, it can just be evergreen and we can just keep extending it. That's not the case. So, so it is something that we've been, working through and trying to educate vendors on, that once you have a contract, it's not forever. It's, there is a very clear expiration date noted there. And if we are extending contracts, there's very clear documentation as to why. And it's definitely not we're extending the contract for the same duration as before, unless that's something that's a renewal option that's specific in the contract. There's been a lot of implications in the past of contracts just getting renewed and renewed and renewed when there were no renewal options. So we're trying to make sure that we're following the necessary guidelines and meeting the provisions within the procurement code for contracts. Because once we extend past a certain date, the Attorney General's office is now involved. So they want to make sure that we're following guidelines to not be violating any sort of antitrust laws or anything like that. So we just want to be conscientious of that. And sometimes some of that stuff is less familiar to vendors, especially vendors who work more in the private sector than in the public sector, just because they're not as, they don't have as much rigor around what they're allowed to do.
Yeah, very easy to extend and make a new contract in the private sector versus here. I am racking my brain for more things that might be applicable, but I can't
Yep.
think of anything.
Okay.
Talk offline too, on your, which app it was, but talk about cost benefit analysis of
Oh.
certain
Straight
form.
here.
There was a form that showed the guidelines of when you have to do it, but is there like a template that you can throw stuff in that?
I believe, is this what came up from that one link?
Yep, the cost benefit analysis link.
I swear there's a spreadsheet somewhere I remember seeing.
So I can neither confirm nor deny that statement.
Let me
Do you
search
wanna
over
look?
here 1 second.
The thing with this cost benefit analysis is that it is confusing and the verbiage in the code is not very clear. That is something that we are working on. I believe it's part of our bill this year to push through, is just basically all that we're doing in the code this year is just clarifying things that are confusing. Like the cost benefit analysis. When do you have to do one? When do you have to formally do one versus when can you do an informal one? I can give you some guidance around what we do in our office. I don't know if that'll help or.
Do you have a spreadsheet or is it something that?
Well, what you saw was basically kind of what we have, unless
Yeah,
we can
I'm
find
sorry,
something else.
I might be thinking of something that was circulated internally that isn't out here. Where was that one?
Was it the one from the training that Sherilyn and I were racing to find?
I think that was
Because that was
exactly
the one. That was the one.
really, okay, so where was that one at?
It's under agency trainings. So, so just kind of some guidance that we do in our office is we kind of use the rules. So you can look at this. It's, again, still not super, super clear, but what we're looking for is it exceeds the greater, the statement is exceeds the greater of $10,000 or 5%. It means that the difference must exceed both $10,000 and 5%. So if you look at that first example there, the highest scoring vendor was $1.6 million, but the lowest cost vendor was $1.5 million. So the difference is $100,000, and that equals 7%. So is the cost benefit analysis required? Yes, because it exceeds both of those thresholds.
The wording in the rule is odd, because I believe it says or.
Yeah, it says it says exceeds the greater of $10,000 or 5%.
Oh, yeah, okay, it says it right there, yeah. Yeah.
But it's an and.
Yes, so that's really the only thing that is somewhat unique about this, but it can be confusing if you don't know that it really should say and if you take it down to the lowest common denominator, it does mean and when you go through it.
It's sort of a lawyer thing, and he's one of the lawyers,
It's a thing.
so.
It's a thing. It's a thing.
But kind of the easiest way to look at it is it $10,000 and 5%? If the answer is yes, then yes, you should be doing a cost benefit analysis. But the other thing that that you might have to look at is not necessarily just cost benefit, but potentially cost justifications. So say you're doing an RFP and you get to the end and there's only one vendor that meets all the thresholds, meets all the requirements. That's the only vendor. You don't have another vendor to compare their costs to be able to do anything. You should be still kind of, even in the background, do a cost justification just to make sure that their costs are reasonable. And that justification can be something as simple and informal as taking a look at your previous contract, if it's something that was a resolicitation. What was the cost of the previous contract, taking into account inflation and any kind of scope changes? Is it still kind of reasonable? Is it kind of in the same ballpark? You can do, reach out to the industry, do some Google research to just kind of see if that cost makes sense. So, I mean, that's a little bit different than a cost benefit, but it's still kind of in that same vein of being able to justify that vendor's cost. With regards to this, the highest score versus the lowest cost means that it's a vendor that's made it all the way through the process. Like, they've met all the mandatory requirements, they meet all the technical specifications. You shouldn't be comparing the cost of somebody who didn't meet any of those requirements. So if you get two proposals in, and one of them doesn't meet and the other one does, you shouldn't be comparing their costs, because obviously these guys didn't meet, so we don't even know if their costs are accurate for what it is that we're looking for. Does that make sense? So, yeah, again, this spreadsheet's not super helpful. We don't have any sort of a template that I've ever seen. I've sort of just kind of written up kind of a couple paragraphs that just say, based on this research or comparing to previous contracts held for this procurement item, and so then I've just kind of cited the numbers at that point and kind of done the math and shown the math. But we don't, I have never seen anything, I don't know if you've seen anything that's been kind of a template that we complete, just because it's always different.
I know I saw one. I'm not crazy. There's something. It's definitely not on the website, and I think actually what I'm thinking it would probably do more harm than good, because the cost-benefit analysis should be exhaustive up to a point, but like Wendy's saying, if she just writes a few paragraphs that go through the main points of what you are analyzing, that's sufficient. If we develop a form, I assure you it will be the most exhaustive thing that you will look at, and you won't want to do it, because it will just take so much time.
What I'm going to commit Rick to
Oh,
right
boy,
now
Here we go.
is we'll go back and take a look and see if there is something. And we can communicate that out. Tom's copied us on a couple of the emails that have gone out to the group at large, and we can just let you know if there is something beyond this document out there that you can refer to, or if there is something, then we can share that. No guarantees, but we can make that commitment at least to look. Because there are training materials that we have internally that, are pretty general, and it's not something that, is confidential or anything, and we're more than happy to share if, again, we're super against recreating the wheel wherever possible. So we can definitely make that commitment to you to take a look and see if we've got any other documentation that might be helpful.
And there are, the code does give you a reasonable amount of guidance if you are doing it. But it's not, it's not a template by any means.
I'm going to write it down so we don't forget.
Okay. Anything else? Any suggestions for acronyms that we should use? This is, it's going to be under the agency. So we're here in agency training, right? You can see that right here, but up here, to get there, you would just go right here.
And then it's under the advanced, it's the last link under the advanced purchasing. Yeah.
When a vendor's contract is up, and if they receive a contract again, do they keep the same contract number, or do you give them?
With state cooperative contracts, if the contract expires and the scope of the solicitation is reasonably the same, and that same vendor is awarded, then we will let them keep the same contract number. It's easier for continuity, and it's easier for you guys as users, easier for the vendor to kind of keep track of everything as well. So for the most part, we do try to keep that consistent. It is, for us on the back end, it's actually an administrative nightmare, but it does make it easier for everybody who's using the contract to be able to still be able to find it. So if you see, something's coming close to expiration, and then once it expires, you don't see that contract number again, that vendor's fallen off. So that was a really good question. Anything else? Anything else you guys want to talk about? Emotional, otherwise? Do we need to do some public procurement therapy sessions?
Yeah.
But yeah, I just kind of want to circle back to the fact that, please feel free to reach out to us, questions, concerns, any feedback that you have. We're always open to it. We want to improve as an office. We want to help you guys be more efficient wherever possible. Our services are free. Feel free to take advantage of our resources. Especially, like I said, especially us knowing that, there's a lot of agencies out there that don't have the kind of that bandwidth that we have as far as resources available to do some of the legwork. So, I don't really have anything else. You guys have specific questions with regards to navigating through the website or specific contracts, or I don't really sing and dance, so I'm not going to offer that up.
If there's something that you think of after you leave, feel free to email us or call us.
You can always use just that contact us form on the website, probably the easiest way to reach out to us, but you saw where our directory is. You can get a hold of either of us or really anybody in the office. Contract manager names are at the very bottom of each of the contract pages or on that spreadsheet. So we're more than happy to try to help wherever possible. Sure.
Thank you for
Thank
coming.
you for having us.
Thank you.
Tom, parting words?